What's up guys, in this week's video we're going to be continuing my look into gimbal work and improving my skills using my Ronin by looking at tilting this week. Last week we looked at panning, this week we're going to be looking at tilting. Let's get into it. Alright, so last week I didn't really cover the differences between panning and tilting and all of that. With this camera I'm going to be using demonstrate. When you are moving the camera in terms of physically moving it from the left position and moving it to the right, that is called tracking. Tracking is any camera movement where the actual full body of the camera is moving, so you can track forwards, you can track backwards, you can track to the left, or you can track to the right. Now when it comes to rotating the camera or changing the angle in which you're looking at, that is panning. So when you go from the left and you turn to the right, that is called panning. You can't pan forwards or backwards because panning is a rotation rather than a movement, and you can't pan up or down because that is called tilting. If you want the camera to point upwards, you wouldn't pan up, you would tilt up. That's the terminology in its bare bones form. You've got tracking, panning, tilting. You do have other movements as well, but those are the very basics that I want to be looking at for the purposes of these videos, at least at the beginning of these videos. So panning is what we did last week. This week we're going to be doing tilting, which is where you're going up or you're coming down to meet a subject. So just like what we did last week, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go back down into my living room, find a subject to film, and I'm going to practice tilting up to the subject and tilting down to the subject. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to say other than that, so let's get into it. Let's get downstairs. Let's go. So I've got my camera set up. I've kind of like propping it in between my legs at the moment. I've got this joystick here. That's how I'm going to be practicing with it today, because you can't really turn it up or turn it down because of how the gimbal is designed. If you lock it in, even then, no matter what you do, the camera still stays pointing forwards. So that's where the joystick comes in. If you point it up, it'll turn up. There we go. If you pull it down, it'll come down. If you push the joystick up, it'll turn up. If you pull the joystick down, it'll go down. So that's how you get a tilt using a gimbal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prop it between my legs to keep it stable. And I'm going to have it pointing towards our little mannequin again, just like we did last time. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to start by having it pointing up, and I'm going to use the joystick, pull down on the joystick to get that into frame. And that's what my plan is. And I'm going to try and not move, because obviously if I'm using my legs to prop it, if I wiggle, the camera moves. So I need to stay as still as I can as I'm doing this. So again, I'll go down and then come back up again. And how the speed works is the more you pull down. So if you just like tilt it down slightly, it'll go down slightly. But if you really pull all the way down, it'll go down quickly. Same on the way up. If you just slightly tap it up, it'll go up slowly. But if you go all the way up on the joystick, it'll go up quickly. So I'm going to play around with the speeds. Try and make sure I'm getting it. See, there was a bit too low. See, again, I went too far. And that one was right. I'll try that again. Not enough. Not enough. Tiniest bit too much, but not as bad. Again, tiniest bit too much, but not so bad. And the aim is just to try and make it consistent. Like that one was good. Now another important thing is, because it's a joystick, it is very easy to accidentally go sideways with it. It's really easy to accidentally go sideways. So that's something else that I'm going to need to take into consideration and practice. That's something else that practicing will also help me with, is not accidentally turning the camera sideways on the way up or on the way down. Something else that I'm realising, and when I'm thinking about it more. Tilting is a relatively niche camera movement. There's not many times that you would see a tilt in a standard production. In commercial work, yeah, sure. You'd see it relatively often, but not as often as a pan. Like, human beings are naturally very horizontal creatures. We've got eyes next to each other rather than on top of each other. So our vision is wide, not tall. So naturally our instinct is to look around us, not up and down. So this tilting feature on the gimbal, it makes sense why you can't tilt holding the gimbal. It makes sense that you can't tilt like this. It makes sense. The tilt function on the gimbal is probably designed just to make minor adjustments. So like if I was moving and the subject got a little bit higher in frame, I would slowly make a small adjustment. So this is something that I'm going to need to practice as well as the bigger motions and being able to meet the subject. It's also making small, tiny little adjustments. So if I start like here, being able to smoothly go up, or if it's a little bit too high, smoothly go down. However, I've been going for roughly about 15 minutes, and I don't want it to get to a point where it is just practicing and getting used to just these angles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it a day there, and then tomorrow or over the weekend or next week I'm going to keep practicing with this and with the panning as well, but change up the angles, change up the location, change everything up, so I'm practicing tilting and meeting a target rather than remembering the angles, if that makes sense. I'm managing to get that relatively consistent at this point, and it's just a matter of me remembering that, me getting the timing in my muscle memory. And obviously it's all well and good having the timing in my muscle memory for this angle. However, if I need to tilt down a little bit lower, or I need to stop a little bit higher or a little bit lower, having that timing in my muscle memory is not going to help in the slightest. So yeah, I think I'm going to call it a day there, and I'm still going to practice this, but I'm calling the video here. I'm still going to practice this for a little bit longer. I'm going to call the video there. But yeah. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.